Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unstoppable Marketer Podcast. With me, as always, is Mark Goldhart, who is always on his phone when I introduce him.
I know I am.
Just always on the phone.
I just
become part of your ethos now.
Probably should be at this point.
Yeah.
Now I just have to.
I wish that I was looking at your phone and I wish it was just your home screen and you weren't actually looking at anything.
Like if
It'd make it even better.
That would be
because it
funny.
would be like it is your ethos.
What if I actually am? Like no thumbs?
It's like those people who are like, there's been times where
Reading an article.
Like celebrities will be like caught on the phone.
They're not talking to anyone. They're just like,
but they're just trying to avoid the media. And then it'll show that it's like their messages that are open or something like that.
Right.
How are you?
Life's good. Life's good. We're coming near the end of the year. Some big events coming up, right? For not me particularly, but for most people. You got bowl games, college football.
Yeah.
Alabama snuck in.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Our great producer over here, Abby, is a
she's Roll Tide.
Roll Tide fan.
Bama fan.
Big Bama fan.
Yeah.
Only because of my family.
Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
She's lying. She's just a fair weather fan.
She's always had a crush on Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Oh. You know what's funny about that? Like in the South, they worship Nick Saban. He is the Lord and Savior.
Second only to Jesus.
Yeah, I understand.
Might be more than him.
I mean,
in some places.
Well,
they worship him.
Probably if you measured up fiscal spend on where people are spending their money, they probably spend more money on him
and time
over
like how much money and time they spend in like a church or something like that.
They may have more pictures of Nick Saban in their house than they do Jesus.
Saint Saban.
Yeah.
Saint Saban. I'm going to say something that may be embarrassing, and I already know what you'll think about this, Mark, but as I do the dishes, I just turn either, if I have a good podcast, I'll listen to a podcast. If not, I'll just turn on like Netflix and just like watch something. And lately I've been watching, they're doing like a lot of documentaries, you know, like they did Point Break, which is like tennis. I can't remember what the golf one is, where they like follow a bunch of golfers, but they've done all these like really cool, like Netflix is doing cool documentaries I like in sports. However, I took a little break from that and I restarted the classic TV series called Friday Night Lights, which I'm positive you have never watched a single episode, nor ever will, nor care to. But it is one of the best.
I watched the movie
series. It's 10 times better than the movie.
Is it?
20 times better than the movie.
It's like
follows a high school.
The movie's a little more serious, probably, right? Is the show more of a serious high school drama?
It's definitely serious. Yeah. From like a drama perspective. Anyways.
Well, I thought the movie was dumb.
I actually didn't love the movie that much.
Great soundtrack, but.
Well, yeah. Are you talking Explosions in the Sky?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Explosions in the Sky also got a contract with Friday Night Lights, the series, and the whole soundtrack. It's all Explosions in the Sky.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry. But we're talking about Nick Saban, people worshiping, and like I totally get it as you're watching the college football, like this. I'm watching this high school football, and that's all they talk about is football. But I also used to live in Dallas, Texas, and I used to be the stereotypical Utah pest control door-to-door sales guy.
Nice.
And when we would knock doors on Friday, no one would answer the door. No one would answer the door because everybody would be
out supporting their team.
I mean, it was crazy. And we'd go to some of the high school football games and they were awesome. So,
you know, that kind of fandom for high school in Texas makes more sense to me than college football fandom, though.
Why?
Because most of the people live in the area, right? So you're supporting a high school. So, you know, it's your community. It's kids you probably know.
Sure.
Where college football, it's not even homegrown kids. I mean, it's just kids from all over the place. I mean, it's just like a hodgepodge of people from all over the country.
But you attended it.
A lot of people
attend.
Most college football fans did not attend the university. They
or had like a family member who attended and it was like passed down from generation, right?
Yeah, kind of like generational trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Like my dad is a diehard BYU fan and he never went to BYU.
Yeah.
But my grandpa is a BYU Hall of Fame athlete. So
Really? Pickleball?
No, pickleball did not exist back then.
Didn't?
No.
Badminton?
Baseball and basketball.
And basketball.
Yeah, my grandpa actually got drafted to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
But going back to
college,
Saban,
well, the thing is you made a point. You made a point about how you think that it makes more sense for high school.
it does make more sense because when I say generational trauma, I'm half joking. What I mean by that is, I have a theory that college football is just passed down sunk cost bias. Somebody spent money at a university, right? They put all this time and effort into something, and so therefore they are more dedicated to that idea of what that university is or was.
I agree with that 100%.
And so then they have to just continue to root for that team no matter what.
I agree with that 100%. I actually think I'll think a lot about that. Like I used to be die hard college football fan, and then one day it just dawned on me that I'm like, I'm ruining my night and my wife's night because a college football team lost because 19-year-olds didn't play right. Like I just had that like dawn on me one time, and I'm
19-year-olds controlling your entire emotional state.
Yeah, controlling my Saturday night and how me and my wife interact with each other. And I'm just like, how stupid is this? And then when you actually think about sports in general, you think like, I mean, I love sports, but when you think about how emotional you get about it, the fact that you, like a 30-year-old man, wears a 19-year-old's jersey. There's some just kid's jersey because he's good at something. Like when you think about that, isn't that kind of weird? From a sports perspective.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like what would we do if like a 35-year-old man was wearing a 16-year-old's jersey?
Well, that happens.
That happens. Yeah, I think that happens.
16-year-old?
High school.
Yeah.
Really? Like besides their parents, do fans?
I'm sure in big places, like in dedicated places, like Dillon, Texas.
You think that happens?
Alabama. High school games.
I don't know about here
hard.
in Utah.
It's just all romanticized.
Mark's
blown away.
Well, actually think about this.
What if it's a 40-year-old man wearing a 16-year-old girl's jersey name and he doesn't have any relation or know this person?
That would be weird.
That'd be weird. But here,
well, why?
But listen. But
why is that weird?
Well, who is the dude? Who was the
He
BYU,
really likes volleyball.
Who was the BYU basketball player that was really good? This white dude. He was a lefty. He punched the Utah basketball player.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh! I lived next door to his parents. I literally live right by his parents.
Why
can't I think of what their last name is? I feel so stupid
Lone
right now.
Peak guy?
Is it Nick Emery?
Nick Emery.
Okay, Nick Emery.
People in that area, because I live in that community.
Yeah.
People in that area like talk about him to this day. And I mean, that was 10 years ago, I think, or maybe not 10, 8 years ago. And I'm like, I could probably see some people having a Nick Emery Lone Peak high school jersey. Like that wouldn't be surprising to me.
Yeah, but that's like wearing a Michael Jordan jersey after the fact that he was in high school is different. If you found his high school jersey.
Well, I'm talking about when he was in high school.
You could see people wearing it, like adults.
But on the other hand, I don't think my son loves jerseys. My son's 8. He loves jerseys. He's got Michael Jordan. He's got, Allen Iverson. He's got Shaq. He's got Karl Malone. He's got 5 or 6 jerseys.
Greg Ostertag?
I wish, man. I wish.
Yeah.
Funny fact is one of my best friends bought Greg Ostertag's old house, which was pretty cool.
I went to a Utah football game and it reminded me of if I lived back in the Roman Empire, it'd be the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And you have to make, it's kind of like Hunger Games almost. Like you have to make what do they use? What's the word they use? you have to make like an example of someone, or you have to make someone big. You have to make someone influential enough that you can put them as the face of Pizza Hut, like Cam Rising.
Yep.
You know, like it's an interesting social dynamic, actually.
Yes.
And it's marketing.
Look at her. The unstoppable marketer right there.
Yeah, look at that. Marketing. Well, I think to your point, I think it's interesting how people's state of mind changes based off of where they are, what they're doing. And as marketers, you have to understand that people's buying behavior changes based off of the mood they're in, which is often predicated by the situation that they find themselves in as well. So,
like Disneyland.
Yes, Disneyland, or if they're going through a big life change, they're more likely to buy or try new things. So big companies know this, is if a woman is pregnant or postpartum, they're more likely to try something new. And so a lot of people would say, why is that? It's just what people do. When something is changing, when there's a big change in your life, they're all of a sudden willing to like examine and change other little dynamics of their
open,
life.
Yeah.
So they're more susceptible to being sold to. So people spend a lot of money targeting new parents, not just because of baby products, but also because, they might actually change their energy drink that they're used to, or they might change their cereal or whatever it is.
Yep.
And so trying to target people during those states of mind is interesting. And it's also just interesting thinking about, how primitive people can be when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
And I don't say that judgmentally either. Like I'm as guilty as the next person, right?
Sure.
Like it's fun and it's a good outlet, but it's interesting. Why do people get so attached to a sport team? Because that's a brand.
Yeah.
Why do people get so attached to the brand of a team and to certain company brands, and why do they not?
Well, I was going to say you have
to others.
I was going to say you have, like, you can take this from a sports perspective, and you can turn this to like cars. If you grew up in a family that was a Ford fan, you are a Ford, and Dodge is the worst.
Yeah.
Right. If you grew up in Dodge, you're like, how could you ever have a Ford? And now if you grew up in a Tesla family, it's like, how could you ever drive a gas car? I don't know. Maybe we'll see what happens if that's how people are.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I do think you're right that like it is this sunk cost bias that generationally has been passed down from grandparents to sons to grandkids.
Right. So here's an interesting question. Walmart.
Hit me. Hate it.
Does Walmart have a brand?
Yes.
Do people shop at Walmart because it has a brand or just because it's the cheapest?
Well, I think that it's both. I think that that's Walmart's brand.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm not necessarily. Well, I guess I think their tagline, if I'm not mistaken, and Abby, you might have to look this up. I think low prices is in their tagline.
Everyday low price.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Save money, live better.
We're both wrong.
No, go back to the 2000s.
I'm pretty positive.
It was everyday low price was in their commercials all the time.
Anyways,
always low prices. Because do you remember it said Walmart and then it had always underlined?
Yeah.
It was they rebranded.
Yeah,
that's right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is you have a company like Walmart, one of the biggest companies in the world, right?
Correct.
Paper thin margin when it comes to per product, but huge value because of quantity sold. So like their whole model is just based off of lifetime values of people coming back, low prices.
Yeah.
But they don't have a brand. Like nobody says, I'm a Walmart person. I'm a Walmart guy. My family's a Walmart family.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Bestie. Bestie is the first ever AI-powered post-purchase survey platform. Bestie is revolutionizing the way you understand your customers. Are you uncertain about what motivates your customers to choose your products? Unsure how customers are discovering your brand or which marketing channels are most effective in driving sales to your website? Or do you know how long it takes your customers to make a purchase decision? Look no further, because Bestie is the ultimate solution for you. With Bestie's cutting-edge AI feature, you can effortlessly create comprehensive surveys in just a matter of seconds without the need for any of your valuable time. And that is not all. Bestie's automated insights will regularly provide you with actionable information week over week, giving you the tools to drive your business forward. Now, with the holiday season in full swing, there is no better time to start gathering valuable customer data. Bestie is offering an exclusive 30% discount for Q4 alongside a 14-day free trial. Do not miss out on this opportunity to supercharge your business and truly get to know your customers. As e-commerce owners and agency owners ourselves, we use Bestie every single day to help us make better decisions on how we communicate, acquire, and grow our customers. Visit Bestie AI or check out apps.shopify.com/bestie today to secure your Q4 pricing. Don't wait. Start making data-driven decisions with Bestie today.
Yeah, this is an interesting.
Nobody says that.
This is an interesting topic because they do have a brand.
People do say that about Costco.
They do have a brand, but people don't always want to be associated with that brand.
Yeah, but I would argue that it's not even a want. It's just people don't.
Well, because, yeah.
Whether you're high status, economically speaking, or, in the lower spectrum, I don't think people associate it as a brand. Like, they don't view themselves, it's not part of their identity in any way. Where Costco is. Like, people identify as Costco families. Like, I am a Costco person. But what's the difference here between a Costco and a Walmart? There's one huge difference.
One's more exclusive than the other?
Yeah. They're both cheap. I would wager their prices are within cents or dollars, comparatively speaking, if you lined them up. Like, I don't know. Maybe in bulk, you're going to get a better deal at Costco for some things, right? But Costco has a membership. Walmart does not. Now, Walmart has Sam's Club, but nobody talks about Sam's Club.
So my question for you is, like, what is it that makes somebody want to be associated with a brand? Because Walmart does have a brand. There's no doubt that their brand, and it is just cheap. You can get anything you need at the lowest prices.
Sure. I mean, again, I'm not saying that, by the pure definition of a brand, right? But what we're saying, let's change the definition of what a brand is. Like, a brand in this context, like we're referring to, right? In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, there's always 3 definitions for any word, right? Like, you can have a sub-definition. This is what we're referring to right now, I think, is a brand is something that people actually identify with.
So people want other people to know that they associate with that thing. So why do people do that?
So, for example, my wife, we go to Walmart. We do a Walmart run. We also have like a Harmon's run, and then we do a Smith's run, depending on like what we're buying.
No Costco in there?
But out of those brands, I would identify as a Harmon's.
For those of you who don't know what Harmon's is, you're really missing out, by the way.
Yeah.
If you don't live in
Utah.
Great
grocery store.
Yeah. The best.
Like, Walmart is, you order it, you go, you pick it up, and you leave. You know what I mean? Like, there's no...
So people want to associate themselves with brands or identify as a brand that they use because it makes them what?
Why? Makes them feel a certain way.
Yes.
Now, Walmart might make you feel a certain way because you got a good deal, but nobody's like out there being like, I'm a
But does Walmart shopper. Make you look better?
No.
Yeah, there's
and again, I just said I'm a Walmart. I shop at Walmart.
Totally. Yeah.
but it's not a brand in the sense that people don't go and identify with it. Where Nike, people identify with a Nike.
Yeah.
And I get there's different kinds of products sold because like Walmart isn't necessarily selling Walmart brand.
Sure.
I mean, they do have some Walmart brand, but
Sure.
you know, so obviously it's a retail store in that sense where they're bringing in other companies to there. So like there's that sense of it. But again, Costco does the same thing, but Costco has a brand.
I think this goes back to, I've said this a handful of times on the podcast before. I've quoted this quote that I do not know where it's from, so I would love somebody to finally correct me. And I also want somebody to prove me that I didn't come up with this, because I have this like battle between like, did I come up with this quote? Because I think it's awesome if I did, but I don't think I did. Pretty sure I read it somewhere. And I'm pretty sure that I always, before I quote this, say the same thing. People don't share good things. They share what makes them look good. And you can probably associate this to this discussion, right? From a branding perspective. People don't associate a brand that doesn't make them look good. They don't identify with a brand, even if they might be a user of that brand. They don't outwardly identify with that brand unless it makes them look and feel better.
Yeah.
Costco, because it's got
generally speaking, yes.
Yeah, Costco, because it's got the exclusivity piece to it
of the membership
Of the
and
membership.
the great deals, so you feel like you're getting a bargain.
But like you said, it is the same. It's probably, I've never priced it out, but you're probably right when you're talking about buying in bulk, apples to apples. Like your pricing wise is probably pretty similar, you know? Because Walmart also carries high end stuff. Like Walmart also carries Prime, and you're going to buy that same price. In fact, if you were to buy a pack of Prime at Costco versus Walmart, you're going to get better prices at Costco, most likely.
Yeah, if in bulk, right?
In bulk, exactly. Yeah. So that's interesting.
So why does this conversation matter though? It's because I think brands have a hard time accepting who they are.
Yeah.
Walmart knows what Walmart is, and they always have.
Yeah.
Walmart is not trying to be your gourmet high-end grocery store. What are they trying to be? They're trying to be
reliable,
low price.
Yeah.
That's all, like that's their entire ethos. Like they don't care about being the sexy brand. I mean, maybe that will change. And you know, they're trying to spiff it up a little bit with their rebranding, but
yeah, and with their kind of like competition against Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to kind of.
Well, they now have a marketplace, right, that they've rolled out that apparently is growing pretty quick. So yeah, but again, going back to that, like Walmart knows what Walmart is. Like they're not trying to be something they're not.
So why not lean into it?
So they leaned into it, and they grew into becoming one of the biggest American companies of all time.
Yeah, this goes back to.
And on the flip side, Nike is not selling the cheapest shoes. Apple is not selling the cheapest computers, and they both grew to be the biggest leaders in their space and companies in American history too.
Well, and something that's interesting about Nike is I think Nike understood what they were and what they weren't when back in 2017, I think it was, Nike pulled back from hard goods.
Yeah, their golf clubs and.
Yeah, golf clubs, baseball bats. You know, I think they even had Nike weights. You know, like they were trying to get into this, you know, hey, we do athletic wear and athletic clothing, so why not create products that, you know, and they decided to pull back and say, we're not going to do that stuff anymore. Or shoes, we'll create golf polos, we'll create golf shoes, but we're not going to create golf balls anymore. We're not going to create golf clubs anymore. We're not going to create golf bags anymore. And
I like their golf balls too.
They leaned into.
And it's not because people weren't buying those things. They were. I don't know if they were super profitable in those things, but they were.
That's a good question.
They were selling.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. Does the customer define the brand, or does the brand define the brand? Does the customer define the brand, or does the business define the brand?
The age-old question of what is the death of the author? Or where is the death of the author?
I've never heard that question before. I believe and trust you that it is a question.
Abby
I
looks
never
like
heard
an
that.
AP student. I bet she took AP English.
I never took a single AP course.
Am I right, Abby? You didn't take AP English?
No. I did score a 34 on my English, though.
On the
So what
ACT
is-
portion?
On the ACT. Just on accident.
What did you?
Honestly.
What was your overall score?
20.
What was yours?
Mine?
Yours was pretty good.
It's not good. I mean, it's 26.
That's pretty good. I got a 19, so I'm the.
I mean,
dumbest
it's
of all
pretty
of us.
good for the circumstances in which I took the test.
Sure.
And the fact that I was a very, very absent and poor student.
Okay, moving forward. Sorry, moving on to this. You were saying death of the author. I said I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, read it, Abby.
I looked it up. It says the death of the author is a literary theory that argues that the meaning of a text is not determined by the author's intention, but rather by the reader's interpretation.
I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
There isn't an answer.
Okay.
Because it's reciprocal.
So, what do you say to brands then?
Because it's a relationship.
Okay.
Okay, so I was actually just thinking about teenagers. So teenagers are super awkward. Like especially
In
once they hit 13.
Middle school.
13 to 16, very awkward, right?
Yeah, that's middle school, right? Pretty much. Like 12 to.
Is that middle school?
Yeah, it's like 12 to 14, 15, I think.
I don't know. I graduated when I was 17, so I was young for my really young for
you
my
were
grade.
a youngster.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, yes. Awkward
So
stages.
for me,
I get it.
that was a lot of high school.
I get it. Yep. Awkward stage.
So awkward stage. So when we talk about brands and their awkward stages, it's really an identity crisis. So when a brand is not hitting the mark, I think it really comes down to more of an identity crisis than anything else. And that's the same thing with teenagers, right? Confidence is exuded when somebody knows who they are.
Mhm.
And so teenagers have a hard time being confident because they don't know who they are. So they fake it.
Mhm.
They go all out and extreme in certain ways,
Yeah.
right? Or they withdraw.
Yeah.
And then eventually it all kind of like simmers down and comes down to like an average
Like
later
oh,
in life.
this is just who you are.
Yeah.
And they accept it.
Brands, I think, need to understand that you go through the same growing pains as a brand where you think you know who you are, right? Teenagers think they know who they are.
Sure.
And they're so wrong. I mean, I go back and think about what I thought about myself as a 15-year-old.
What were you? What was you? Who were you as a 15-year-old?
I don't know.
You don't remember what your brand was? What you were trying to make it?
I was a sophomore.
I remember mine very deliberately. And that's why I'm like smiling about it.
I wore a lot of sweats.
Because it's nothing to who I am now. I was way, way emo.
Oh, you
Like
were
screamo,
emo?
screamo music. Loved me some screamo music.
Really?
Yep. Shopped at Lucky Women's with my pants to get my pants.
Lucky Women's.
Yeah, the Lucky Women's section. Because they didn't have skinny jeans back then. So I got women's jeans at Lucky. And that's what I wore.
What? Did you comb your hair down?
That's who I was.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. to emo Trev. But
I was referring the hair.
yeah, I think I had some emo hairdo as well.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I would dye it black, like jet black. I had a little emo face. You may not be able to see it, but that's who I thought I was.
Yeah.
And but I
You thought
loved,
you were super emotionally deep
but I
and,
loved sports.
and pained.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel any of those things, but I wanted
But you
it. I don't
wanted
know-
to feel those
like
things.
I wanted it, but I was almost embarrassed that I was more athletic and loved sports. Isn't
You
that
were
interesting?
embarrassed of
Yeah.
sports?
Isn't that a little interesting? This was probably
Did
more
you
like
skateboard?
14. Yeah.
Did you ever? No, you were a fruit booter, weren't you?
Yeah, but then I turned skateboarder. You know,
Sorry, that's a
skated little bit.
derogatory term now.
Is it really? Fruit booter?
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Fruit booter was rollerblades.
Just kidding though.
Like
Rollerblades
rollerblader.
were cool.
That's what they call it. Oh, that's probably why. Maybe fruit booter is like. Is that because it's like gay and fruity is And did skateboarders give fruit
I
bitters?
honestly don't know. I just
I
said
never
that.
I never even thought about it until you said that. Could be derogatory. I have no idea.
I don't know
We
either.
apologize if it is.
Probably is.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
me as 15, I don't know. I had a really strange upbringing.
Yeah.
Not strange in like my family dynamic, just strange that I did a lot of different weird things,
Yeah.
from tap dancing to piano to football to like everything.
You know, well
So-
diverse childhood.
Yeah, I was very well rounded.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry,
Which
we're
got me
talking about
actual like nowhere. So
brands and
doesn't matter.
Brands and knowing your identity crisis.
Yeah, so you need to know who you are as a brand, and then that grows over time. So if you think about, let's go into like marriage therapy here or couples therapy. Okay, when you meet somebody and you get married or you form a long-term relationship, you two are not the same people 10 years later.
Mhm.
Correct?
Mhm.
Because you both have now influenced each other in different ways.
Yep.
To grow into different kinds of people.
Yep.
For better or for worse.
Sure.
It's the same concept with a brand. So it's not like I don't believe in the philosophical debate of like the death of the author, for example, where the interpretation therein lies completely with the beholder. What it is it's a reciprocal relationship that grows over time that is influenced by both parties.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, for a healthy relationship, you can't let the other person always dictate what you are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some identity, some foundation.
Sure.
You can't just be like whatever that person says and like you're always trying to be something different.
Yeah, because if you do that, then you'll never be anything, right?
And they won't even like you.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to always be what that person loves, they're not going to really like you very much.
Yeah.
Again, going back to that idea, I think it's important just to remember that it's a reciprocal, ongoing relationship. But how can you use psychological pulley systems to maybe strengthen that or make that happen faster with your customers? Well, going back to college football, right? And going back to Costco, there are ways to think about this to help create exclusivity or brand or personal identity that's wrapped up in your brand.
Okay.
Because college football, I mean, that is people's identity. Like they identify as a fan of those teams.
Mhm.
Like it's a part of who they are.
Yeah.
And you can do that as well as a company if you know what triggers to pull.
Got any good examples?
Yeah, there's a few examples out there. I guess right off the top of my head, let's talk about an obvious example is Apple.
Okay.
So what is the trigger that Apple pulls to make people invested in their brand and identify as, like, your question that you asked, that clip has 350,000 views right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
the question was, would you
take $100,000?
Take $100,000 to never be an
Yeah.
Apple user again.
Yeah. And everyone's like gamifying that. Like, oh, you can actually just buy used ones. Well,
Right.
in this hypothetical situation, you can't.
Yeah, this is a would you rather, guys.
Yeah,
This isn't you don't gamify would you rathers.
No.
Has anyone ever played this before? So don't say that my wife would buy it for me or my grandma would get it for me or I'd buy it in
Yeah.
India.
Clearly none of
You
those
can't do it.
Clearly none of those men are married, because if they were, have been asked by their wife a hypothetical situation by now.
Yeah.
There's no way around that hypothetical situation.
No.
It's like, would you still love me if like I was a clump of dirt? It's like, well, you're what? It's like, no, just be a clump of dirt.
Okay, so Apple, what you were asking
Can't
me
be
a
like,
question.
well, I'd get a wizard and turn you into a human.
I mean, if we're playing Would You Rather, though, maybe you could.
No, you can't. Not in
Anything
those
game.
situations.
Yeah, I agree.
There's hard cuts on those. But anyways,
There's rules to Would You
digress.
Rathers. Yeah.
I digress. The thing about Apple is they have created through their stories and through their brand story an identity of being creative and unique and empowering creative and unique people. I think that's how you would distill their message.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not even about being smart or being the best. It's creative and unique. And we empower creative and unique people to be their best.
Creative, unique, and then I will maybe add one more. Like ease. Make your life easy as well, because it's
all nice and simplified in a way.
Simplified, modern, everything connects to each other.
Correct.
Right. Go on.
So is that a feature or is that a benefit?
What I just said?
But the
That
brand
is definitely
story,
both.
right? That's how people identify with it. They don't identify necessarily like, oh, I identify because it's easy to use.
Yeah, sure.
Right. But deep down, there's this elitism to it. And why is there an elitism to Apple? There's maybe a little sunk cost bias because it is more expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
But
totally
that is part of the elitism, right?
It's part of it. I don't know if it's totally it. I think what it really is people think they're unique and special because they have iPhones.
Yeah.
And Apple products.
Yeah, and they just inherently think it makes them better.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, is that because of what Apple's saying or because of what the customers are saying? It's clearly an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Like you go back to the 90s and the ads that Apple's was putting out.
But one can influence the other, right? I think is what you're getting at.
Of course it can.
Right. So for example, part of that influence that makes other people Apple doesn't come out and say, if you use us, you're better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But Apple users come out and say that, right? Because it's like, hey, jackass.
Well, Apple kind of does.
Just saving my language here because my son is going to listen to this. Hey, you're ruining our group message. All 15 of us are better than you.
Yeah.
And you're here ruining us. So Apple maybe doesn't openly come out and say it, but most Apple users will just, they think they are better. Where Apple comes out and says they are better, where they influence this, one of the ways, so you might have one, but one way I can think of is the price. Go back to Costco.
Yeah.
Right?
You have a membership.
Why is Costco better? Why is Costco brand? It's because it's exclusive. Right? The exclusive.
Even though that membership is not expensive, but yeah.
Yeah, you're like $50-$60 or whatever a year.
Yeah.
You know? But Apple's prices, I mean, anyone will say this. I still am not a massive believer in it because I just have never really experienced using an Android or anything like that. But people will say functionality, like if you put them like head to head, the Android's going to outperform the Apple iPhone. Okay. How true it is, I don't know. But I've heard this from a lot of people who've gone from Apple to an Android.
If you're talking head to head, I mean, there's plenty of Androids with better cameras.
For sure.
There's plenty of Androids with better computing capabilities or whatever you want to call it, battery life, waterproofing.
But you're not buying an Android for $1,500.
No.
Right? Like this.
But people are willing to pay $1,200.
But this, the terabyte Pro Max 15 was $1,500, I think.
Now, if Apple sent you 100 of I'm just kidding.
So yes, I think that's how Apple says, hey, we are better.
Yeah, for sure. That's part of it.
Pricing.
But what I like that you brought up was the blue text. That goes back to death of the author, right? So a lot of people will examine stories and movies and from their personal bias and perspectives will interpret things as symbolic when they had no symbolic meaning when the author wrote it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple did not intend for the blue thing to happen. It just happened, and then they realized what it was.
You don't think so?
No.
Then why'd they make it blue?
It was blue at first because it was its own network.
Okay.
Because it was free. That was like if you go back to text messages, it cost money to text.
Okay.
iMessage did not cost
Because it
money
did it over Wi-Fi.
Because it went through the data.
Yep.
So the iMessage network, you could send messages, and so that's why it was blue. And then when they tied it into text messaging, that was why it was green. But I don't think they like originally, if I remember right, green was symbolic of money because it cost money to send text messages.
No idea,
If I remember right.
but that makes sense.
I'll have to go back. I don't know why this is all coming to me now because it totally diffuses my point because I think Apple there was some meaning to the originally, like why it was green.
I feel like I read something.
It wasn't
that there was
exclusive. It was because it was costing you money. But then it turned into, people interpret it as, over time, oh, this person, green is ugly, blue is nice.
Yeah.
And so over time, originally it was meant to help you identify, like it cost me money to text.
Yeah, okay.
And over time it turned into, so no, it doesn't completely diffuse my point. They meant something. It didn't really turn out to be that meaning. No one remembers it as that. People will now remember it as, oh, you're not like us. You're an other.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not part of my club. Like, why are you ruining my group text? So again, the people took it and turned it into something different. And then I think Apple started leaning on it.
Yep. And there's some situations as well, you know, with brands where your life as a brand owner might evolve. So let's say you create a business around a specific problem that you're experiencing. Okay. And that product that you create solves that problem and then ends up solving hundreds of thousands of other people's problems too, because we're just like everyone else. We get sick, people get pregnant, people want to get into fitness, and you know, there's these things. What do you say to these people who start a business, they build a brand, and then, like you said, over time, 10 years after you're married, you are not the same person, right? One, because just as you get older and you have kids, that changes your life. You're married to somebody who is different, and that changes you, hopefully for the better. What happens though when a brand owner's life changes and they no longer fit the ethos of their brand? Have you seen? We've seen this happen a lot, right? And they then want to change.
Well, especially in that like 1 to 10 million range, right? Because they can skyrocket because they put a lot of personal investment and thought, and it was like a personal project for them. So a lot of the brand represents what they are at that time.
Yeah. I think Corey from Taft kind of chatted about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he talked about Taft. If you haven't listened, this is an episode where Taft is a like high-end men's shoe company. And he started with socks and started to create boots, like, you know, shoes and boots, and then started to create some like really fun patterns, and those became his best-selling shoes. But he kind of announced on the podcast, like, that was not for me. Like, the brand evolved into something that it wasn't. Like, I wasn't designing those shoes for me.
Yeah, because they kept serving the people that were most engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And they wanted those styles because they were hard to find.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because, I think that's an important thing to remember. I think what's tough for a business, especially a growing business, is separating the identity of yourself and the company.
Yeah.
You know, the company, going back to a teenager, one of the hardest things for a teenager to do is compartmentalize different aspects of their life. You know, you can be and act differently in different situations, and it doesn't make you
any less of that person.
Yeah, it doesn't make you any less of that person, and it also doesn't make you a bad person, and it also doesn't mean anything on a deeper level other than you will behave differently in different situations.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you two-face.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson though, because you're 100% right. Like, I think what's interesting, and I'm glad you brought up that this happens oftentimes in this like 1 to 10 million, you know, dollar range, maybe even up to 20 million, right? But I think that there's such power in a founder making their like business around their identity. There's a ton of power in it because,
and that's all anyone's talking about right now. Founders have to be in front of the camera.
Right?
That's
Because
what Leo talked about.
You can talk and you can go take people through the journey, and everything like you're solving problems that you're experiencing in your life most of the time, whether that be like an actual problem solution product, or it's something like, hey man, I couldn't find a great white t-shirt. And so I created my own because I love t-shirts and the way they fit. Like that's not a big problem, but it's something that you're dealing with in life. So it's like, there's a lot of beauty in that, but then there's a lot of potential problems that can come from that because, like you said, it's not does the author shape the story or does the reader shape the story? What ends up happening is it's both, right? In the beginning, the author does, or in this case, at the beginning, the brand did. But then as the brand continued to go on, the community and the customers started shaping something a certain way. And if that starts to differ slightly from what your original thought process was here, can you be okay with that and still operate and maintain and grow this business and become a business man or woman? And what the goal of a businessman is to grow the business, is to scale a business profitably, right? Versus, okay, let me pivot. This is going in a direction I do not want it to go in because it's not who I am. Let me make a change. And we see that happen all the time. And oftentimes, the moment you turn on the readers, the brand users, into something that they've expected, that can be a death sentence for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, it can.
Because you have to look at it that way, right? And I'm glad that we're getting here, which is community data doesn't fully define it, nor does the brand fully define it. But each one are going to do it at certain levers. But one thing is you can't ever turn on them.
Yeah,
you could really
no,
hurt you.
you can't turn on them, and then you have to go back to like, what is the brand's identity, right? So we're not saying that your brand should change its identity completely just because your audience is slightly changing.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what we're saying, but what we are saying is that if you don't have a firm foundation of what the brand identity is and separating that from your own, and sometimes it's parallel and synonymous, and that's great, but yeah, you're going to lose touch with people because you have to evolve with them over time. And that doesn't necessarily mean telling different stories. It's just changing the way you engage with those people.
Yeah.
And that's something I was actually pondering about as I was playing the banjo the other night. Sometimes I do some late night banjo sessions.
Ponder about brands.
But what's interesting about instruments and music, I think this is a good lesson for everyone to learn, is that I'm playing this banjo. There's 5 strings on this banjo. You can rearrange how the strings, you can rearrange the tuning if you want. I play in what's called double C and a claw hammer style, but most songs, and this is true across every genre, most songs are like a collection of, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 7 chords. And that's it. It's just how you rearrange them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to pop. I mean, pop songs are all the same beat.
Yep.
They utilize the same chords for the most part. And it's just how you rearrange them. And I think too many times as marketers, you look at the instrument you're playing, which is the mess. I mean, so what instrument are you playing is you have your chords, right? How you create music and connect with people is through your message and through creative and right through the branding and through organic, whatever it is that you're putting out there, the copy, the imagery. Instead of just rearranging the notes, you're trying to find a whole new instrument.
Yeah.
When in fact, it's the same instrument. It's just you got to rearrange the notes in a new, different, creative way. But the instrument's not changing. Like people haven't changed.
Yeah.
The way they're engaging with you might change. The trends might change, but people don't change. So what they care about and what they want at a deeper level isn't really changing.
Sure.
From generation to generation. How they engage with it changes slightly.
Yeah.
But that all goes back to your identity. Like you can't just throw away your instrument and go get a new one just because you don't feel connected to that anymore.
And the identity, I think we established this maybe not the last podcast, but 2 podcasts ago, where we did talk about Matt Rife. I think the identity in this case is the overall message. Remember, that's kind of what we came to the conclusion. Like the reason why Taylor Swift was successful from going from country
to pop
is because she didn't really change her message. Right? So those same people who could listen to pop and country, right, who listen to country can also listen to pop and hear what she's saying.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Whereas we kind of talked about Matt Rife could potentially be alienating his audience.
Yeah, and for the record, we're not like calling for his cancellation.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think a lot of people
took it in a way that
like we were offended by the joke.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not my job to get offended by the joke. It was just to point out that from a marketing perspective, he
damaged
said,
himself.
I am for these people and not for those people.
Yeah.
Or at least not totally for these people.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily, I'm not for these people. He just said,
this
the
is for
biggest
them.
career move of my entire life is meant for the people who are not my main audience.
Correct.
Is essentially what he said.
And so we'll see how that works out. Because sometimes, guess what? A fork in the road can turn out great for people.
Yeah. Or if you don't care
about... But a lot of times it doesn't work.
Yeah, or if you don't care about growth, right? If you want the identity to be your identity and you want that always to be there, then you can make these big changes and just understand that there could be financial consequences.
And there's artistic expression here.
Yeah.
Right? So like, it's not necessarily a business decision.
Totally. Whoops.
But no, man, I think it's really important to have these conversations because what is a brand, right? You go back to Walmart. Like, does Walmart have a brand? I mean, I'd love to hear what other people think. Like, do they actually have a real brand that you identify with? I'd say most people say no.
It's a good question.
Like, think about airlines. I think people identify with Delta. Do people identify with Southwest the same way they identify with Delta? Or Southwest just the cheap version? Oh, it's cheap and I use it. But I'm not a Southwest guy.
I would think so. I mean, based off of the conversations I have, you don't hear too many people talking about how they're Southwest people.
But you do hear people talk about their Delta cards and rewards and miles.
Yeah, always. But once again, people talk about it because that you look and feel good when you have those upgrades.
It's a little more expensive.
Yeah, you look and you feel good when you get upgraded to first class.
Yeah.
You know, or get to go into the Sky Club or get to go into but there's that exclusivity, right? Once again, you outwardly express the brands you identify with when they make you look better.
Airlines are so funny to me. It's just buses in the sky.
Just circulating the same air.
Yeah, like just the exclusivity, just the like it's just funny to me.
But that's why
people think it's so cool when they fly.
But that's why
there's prestige to it.
Because flying is so terrible. That's why if you upgrade anything, it's such a miserable experience in general.
Yeah.
Going to the airport, checking in, going through security, having to get there 3 hours early. I mean, everything is such parking. Everything, getting to your terminal, everything is so painful. Baggage claim. But there's nothing pleasant about it flying. 30,000 feet up in the air in a metal box, just thinking about how you could die at any second. The air, it's like everything about flying is miserable. So you alter that situation like a little bit. So for example, I'm a big Delta guy. I have the points. I get the benefits. So to me, the reason why Delta's awesome is because I grew up traveling. My dad would get me to the airport 3 hours before our flight, and we just sit in these crap chairs, right? For 3 hours. And you're just like, Dad, come on. It was like, well, just in case.
Just in case we can't be late.
Yeah, like you miss a flight and you're screwed, you know? But now, when I travel, I don't get to the airport sooner than, I mean, at most, I'm there 40 minutes early.
Salt Lake is easy though.
You know, but it's more like 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because Delta has gotten me through. I get through quicker. I know that I have a seat saved. I if I get there 40 minutes early and I get through ticketing and baggage and all that in 5 minutes, I can go to the Sky Club and I'm sitting on a couch versus, so that's why I think it works really well and people identify from a branding perspective because traveling is so painful that you just, even if that means you get
it's
2
no
bags of
doubt that
peanuts,
the experience is better
right?
with Delta.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, but there's also the exclusivity of it being more expensive, the membership.
100%.
Going back to the Costco.
Yeah, because I have to pay for those cards that I have that get me the points. Like I gotta,
So how does a brand implement this idea of branding in their organic strategies and paid strategies?
I mean, we talked a lot about price as one of those things, right?
Yeah, I want to give an example of that. We consult with a brand where after doing a bunch of user surveys or customer
Excited
surveys.
to see which brand you're talking about.
We discovered that the reason why people buy with this brand has nothing to do with pricing at all.
Ah, yes.
Okay, it's a clothing brand.
Yes, a women's clothing brand.
Nobody cares about the pricing. People are buying because of the new releases and because of who she is as a person.
Who the founder is.
Yes.
Yep.
So they're not buying because of the price. And so a big question that brand's going to have to ask themselves over the next 6 months is, what do we do with this information? Because guess what? Their best acquisition days have nothing to do with sales. Their best acquisition days actually have more to do with their new releases and their products, right? So what is their identity? They're not a cheap fast fashion brand in that way. They are I would identify them as a first mover clothing boutique. That's what they are.
First mover with limited.
For their core audience, which is a specific type of woman.
With somewhat limited stuff as well, right? Because they'll sell out of that
they'll
stuff
sell
and
out.
they might not, and they're not always restocking it.
No.
Yep. So that's also
the exclusivity.
The exclusivity piece, right?
And so they're going to do some thinking and, about how do we amplify that message instead of thinking about, hey, what is Black Friday anymore for them? Is Black Friday that great? Black Friday is good for them, but it's not like it is for other brands.
Yeah.
Like their best months have nothing to do with big sales, generally speaking. Their best months, profitably speaking, have to do with new releases.
And probably maybe some seasonality stuff.
Yeah.
Right. For seasonality from a weather perspective, not seasonality from a sale perspective.
Yeah. Just, apparel in general.
Yep.
And so again,
love it.
What is their identity and how do they implement that? Well, they already do a great job of implementing this on the organic side, the way they create content, the way they connect, the way they get user feedback, and they interact with their customers on social media. They're always having that reciprocal conversation. Always. And so they do an amazing job of branding in that way. And so now it's how do you amplify that message?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a few other examples too, right? So another example is a men's clothing brand where everyone thought they were buying for specific reasons. So around like eco-friendliness. That was kind of the big value prop that started them off. But then it turned out that people actually identified with them because of the utility of their clothes.
Yeah.
So how useful their clothes actually were doing the things that they wanted to do.
They were supposed to do,
being in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And so this brand just increased their pricing and they're not running as many discounts, and yet
people still buy it.
They're more profitable than ever.
Because it's become, even though it's a clothing brand, it's almost somewhat of a problem solution because of the utility.
It's all about utility.
I can't find a pant that does XYZ in this environment. This pant does.
It fits what I need.
So giving me a 30% discount isn't going to make me more inclined to buy it because I was planning on buying it anyways.
Because it's unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Product.
And I think this is going to be the conversation to have in 2024. Inflation is not, it's slowing down, but it's still above where it needs to be. So I think in 2023, a lot of brands are starting to realize that just like discount giving doesn't necessarily help you. Sometimes it can hurt you.
Yeah.
Your profitability goes down because your margins go down and you're still maybe covering the cost of shipping. There's other costs involved on the back end. And you run these big sales, and do those customers come back or do they not? Is it worth it to run big sales? And how do you want to identify as a brand? Again, going back to identifying as a brand, sales aren't bad or good. I'm not saying that. It's not a moral question or
Mhm.
if or statement. It's just simply, are you using them in the right ways? And are you actually making people identify with you in the right ways?
Yeah, for sure.
Because profitability is going to be the theme in 2024. And I will bet you will start seeing a lot of brands shrink away from big discount givings.
Yeah, and massive revenue growth for
Mhm.
the sake of profitability,
Correct.
which is super, super important. Contribution margin. Understanding what your profitability is huge.
It is.
And that's a whole another discussion we will maybe cover in another episode. That will be a little bit less, maybe a little dry, but it's very important and intense.
Yes.
But we'll make it
We'll make it fun.
yeah, we'll make it chipper.
Yeah, I'll bring in my dog and my banjo.
We'll toss a couple, off-color jokes in there.
Yeah.
Make people sweat a bit.
Yeah. And I'll bring in my dog and my banjo.
No.
Yeah.
No dogs.
Yeah, we'll bring in Chewy.
No dogs in
Chewy
here.
will be great. Well, he'll be right here.
He'll bark the whole time.
No, he won't. He only barks at dogs. He does not bark at people, ever. But I'll bring in a harmonica and we'll get him to howl.
Does he do that?
All dogs howl with a harmonica.
Is that true?
So far in my very limited testing of the 5 dogs I've lived and owned, yes, yeah.
Interesting.
It is true.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah,
What do you
let's
think?
it. We'll do a little fireside campfire chat next time.
Yeah, I like that. We also need to do a Q&A too. We got to get those Q&As. Just know, if you're following me at the Trevor Crump, I'm going to start asking for Q&As so we can do live Q&As. Maybe not live. Maybe live. But we'll start answering questions. So you got to follow me to see when I ask.
Cool.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys next Tuesday. Yeah?
Every Tuesday.
Adios. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. Please go rate and subscribe the podcast, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear from you because we always want to make this podcast better. If you want to get in touch with me or give me any direct feedback, please go follow me and get in touch with me. I am at the Trevor Crump on both Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we will see you next week.